Hello, hello. Welcome back to the weekly Monday Motivation Podcast, No More Excuses. I am your host, Sandy Ballard, the Badass Business Coach. Yes, I help you realize your badassness so you can do more, be more, and achieve more. If you haven't, connect with me on social media. And again, please message me or let me know somehow that you are a listener so I can figure out where you are or see where you are or tell me where you are. That's always really fun and cool. And don't forget to get on my website, badassbusiness.coach, and go to the DIY section. If you need any worksheets or help sorting through things, there's a lot of the worksheets I've created on there. And yeah, they're for you to download. So again, thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing this podcast with others. And this is week 280. It's crazy how long it's been since I started over 5 years ago, yet it seems like not really that long ago. It doesn't seem like yesterday, but it doesn't seem like 5 years ago. And again, if you have little ones in the room and you don't want to have them hear cussing, please make sure you remove them or yourself, because I will drop some words. All right? Never know. They just slip out because it's who I am, right? Well, last Monday's podcast was about mindset, the mental chaos that we all deal with on some level and at some point. But by reviewing what shit is going on and facing it, by taking care of the things, you can relieve some of it. We don't want to relive it. We want to relieve it and become mentally stronger. And more importantly, we can operate at a higher level. You know, last week I talked about if you're not operating at 100%, if you're only operating at 40% because you've got all this shit taking up all the extra space, then is it fair for you to show up to a client's meeting or a board meeting or even one of my speaking gigs that I've done in the past? Would I want to get on stage if I'm only giving 40%? That's not fair to whoever is on the other side, and it's not fair to you. So making sure that we're handling things, all right? And it's hard to handle things sometimes, but we've got to take a break. Self-care, yes, guys too. Time off work, massage, golf, an extra workout, or perhaps time with friends or alone with a book. I mentioned last week about my huge mental distraction of finding a place to move and then finding an interim place because those two dates did not match up. And I'd like to say last week was mentally relaxing, but then I had the stress of adjusting the budget to accommodate all of that, deposits, double rents, all that shit. I needed a glass. Oh, screw that. I had a bottle of wine after all of that. I needed it. And the nice thing was my man Candy he recognized that I had taken on most of the planning and coordinating and all that stuff. So he called some friends last Thursday and said, hey, Sandy's been really stressed out with all this lately. Let's grab dinner and drinks. So that was a nice surprise. And it was exactly what I needed. Kind of a distraction from a distraction, right? I was able to de-stress, have some fun, laugh, and not think about all that chaos for a little while. But by getting all of that taken care of, it helped me get closer to 100%. So it's what you do and how you handle it. I could have ignored the financial part of it and just said, oh, I'll handle that later. But it was back there chipping away at me. And I have other stuff scheduled out that I need to handle. Change of address, mail on hold, utility transfers, all those crazy moving things. But I'll handle that closer to time, and I have those scheduled so they're out of my head. All that tedious stuff, is that you can do online. It's scheduled, so it's out of my head and out of my mind, so I'm not going to be bothered by it. And another amazing thing that actually came out of all of this is I was finally able to get my webinar recorded. I was about to lose my shit on that. If you remember me talking about that, that's one of my goals that's been kind of hanging out there. But I had so many other distractions going on, so much other stuff taking up my mental space that I just couldn't, I couldn't focus on it, and I was actually not able to figure some of the things out to try to make it happen. So if you're interested, direct message me for the link or email me, sandy@sandyballard.com. It's called 7 Steps to Starting a Business, which is good for those of you who have a side hustle or have kind of started a business or thinking about starting a business. It's a free webinar. You get my 7-step checklist and so much more. So email me, message me, I'll get you that. But again, that's what happens when you get that mental space cleaned up, right? I was able to focus on it, and I was able to be fully present for myself on camera. Yes. So what did you discover? How have you been showing up? What did you do, or have you taken the necessary steps to clean up that shit show you call your mind? Strength comes from handling the chaos called life. I've talked off and on about literal organization. My desk back in Indiana, here it's just so damn small. It's always a hot mess. But in Indiana, it was a big desk, and I could always tell when I was getting scattered because my desk was a mess. And that meant mentally I was as well. So my environment was not set up for success. When that would happen, I would take a break, move everything off my desk, clean it up, dust it, whatever, and touch one thing at a time. Either put it away in a folder, make a folder, or throw it away. I'd get organized, and then I'd feel like I actually had my shit together. It's funny how that goes hand in hand. Although last week when I was looking for some quotes and stuff, I saw one about a messy desk, that Mark Twain, for example, chose to leave his desk cluttered whenever he was photographed. Interesting. And Albert Einstein, it says, famously pointed out that if a cluttered desk is a sign of a cluttered mind, then what is an empty desk a sign of? Well, everyone works differently. I do tend to have stuff in sight. I feel like if I put it in a cabinet or a drawer, I'll forget about it. So a few years ago, I bought this open top filing cabinet, and it rocks. I have my current clients and projects on a stand on my desk. Otherwise, it's in my filing cabinet, and it's never too far from me. Like I said, people work differently, and that's okay. But it's important to recognize the triggers, the habits, the common occurrences that seem to come in and knock you off track. Remember, even weather can affect you, or other things in your environment, like people. I talk about this off and on, and it popped into my head as I touched on it in my webinar about, setting up your environment. Many times people, friends, family, significant others may tend to invade your boundaries. And last year, or even maybe it still might be happening if you're working from home instead of an office, you've got just shit going on, right? Especially, if you're just starting your business or working from home, people may not really understand what you do or that you do have a quote-unquote job. You may have a job in a business, or your business is your job. I had a client that had this issue. He did a great job of renovating his garage and, into his office, so he was out of the house because they had little kids. And the thing is, though, they still knew Daddy was close, especially if they could see his truck. And until we discussed how to create boundaries with his wife and some of his friends, she was letting them disrupt him throughout the day. With his business, he is on site at the clients many times, but when he was in his office, it was, mentally draining things like invoicing, scheduling, handling issues, coming up with solutions, proposals for clients, important things. And before the vid, it wasn't commonplace to have kids and animals disrupting you or being able to hear them in the background. Like I mentioned, he had friends who would just stop by to shoot the shit. And that can be okay sometimes. But clearly, if he was coming to me to discuss it, it was at a very high level of frustration. And it can be hard to discuss boundaries with people. I mean, they mean well. And the thing is, if you don't handle it, it's going to be tougher on the person you're talking to if you don't have healthy boundaries set up to begin with. When all of a sudden you put on in these quote-unquote rules, people get offended. People are offended easily these days anyway. They just don't think, or they don't think they're distracting you. And depending on where your level of frustration is, you may end up snapping versus explaining, and then you're going to have to deal with that. So making sure you're mentally set up for success as well as environmentally. See what I did there? And it could be your environment that is affecting your mindset. That was part of my issues. Potentially not having an environment to live in for a month can sort of do that to you. When we're looking at places, it was about thinking through it. It was more than what does this space look like to live in? It's what can I work in? Is it close to meeting spaces, or does it have a meeting space that I can have clients in, or a more professional background, right? So as you can probably already see, or I guess hear coming today and this week, I'll help you identify triggers or environmental challenges that you may be having, people and things. It's time to reclaim our space, redraw our boundaries, and yes, if one more damn car alarm or something, I don't know what sounded like it was scratching on the wall, but the car alarms throughout the day and throughout this recording has been very distracting. So I'm excited to, in a couple months, have a new space that I believe will be more properly set up for success. So watch social media this week, and for today, rate your environment. Do you think you're set up well? 1 to 10. 10 being you have no distractions, solid boundaries, you're golden. 1 meaning, okay, I really need some help. And if you need help creating boundaries or even identifying if your environment is working well for you, email me now, sandy@sandyballard.com. Let me help you make sure you are and can be set up for success. We don't want you getting into my client's level of frustration and losing your shit on your family and friends, which he came to me before he did, but he was at that point, right? So look around. Who and what is distracting you? Let me help you, or help yourself get to that next level. Remember, we're leveling up, and your environment is a huge, huge part of that. All right, have a great week. I look forward to hearing from you. Cheers.